Hi, and welcome everyone. We're excited to have you join us for today's Lead Accelerator customer webinar. Today, Anya Lamb will walk us through essential nurture stream best practices. First, a couple housekeeping items. You are all muted by default. If you would like to ask Anya any questions, use the Q&A box to the right, and we'll take time to answer those questions during the Q&A portion following Anya's presentation. If you want to review this webinar later or share with colleagues, we will be sending a recording of the webinar along with the slides to you via email following the event. And now, without further ado, I will toss things to you, Anya.
All right. Thanks, Cassandra. Just get my PowerPoint up here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. All right. So thanks so much for joining. Again, my name is Anya. I'm a marketing automation consultant at LinkedIn. And today we're going to be discussing Lead Accelerator and specifically exploring nurture streams in a bit of depth. All right, so specifically we're going to be talking about how to create and edit nurture streams. And we're going to be spending a bit of time on how to define an audience for your nurture streams. That's often one of the kind of more complex parts of it and where people can get a little stuck, so definitely want to spend some attention there. And then after that, we'll get into some key reports and understand how to use those reports to understand what's going on with your program and also to make some optimizations. At the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So as you think of things, just type them into the request box and we'll answer them at the end. All right. So before we dive right in, I wanted to take a step back for a second and make sure we're all thinking of the same thing when I use the term nurture stream. So let's just review. What is a nurture stream? A nurture stream is a sequence of online ads tailored for a specific audience, tailored for and targeted at a specific audience. So let's make this a little more concrete and walk through what a nurture stream looks like in the platform. On the left, we see the nurture stream editor. In it, the nurture stream has a name, typically based on the audience being targeted. There's also an area to define what behavioral or demographic criteria a contact must meet to be included. And then there are some number of sequential waves. Each wave is a set of ads, banner ads, Facebook ads, sponsored updates, that promote the same call to action and drive to the same landing page. And these ads are served to a contact over a period of time. So that's the editor. When we see nurture streams in the main performance dashboard, they're going to be kind of the top level breakdown of performance. So in this example here, where it says Namer FinServe August 15, that's a nurture stream targeted at a North American financial services audience. And the one below it, North America Engaged Other August 15, is also a nurture stream. If you click on the plus signs next to a nurture stream, you can see the waves within that stream. So here we see a wave about Lead Accelerator, another about the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, etc. And then if you click on the plus signs again, you can see the ads that are associated with a particular wave. So the stream is the whole sequence, and a wave is a time-bounded set of ads that's part of that sequence. All right, so just to give a bit of an example here, I want to talk about how we can combine streams to create a strategy and also get into the nuances of how contacts move through and between the nurture streams a little bit. So here's a basic Lead Accelerator strategy where an advertiser has decided that they have 3 basic audiences determined by engagement level. And let's read this from right to left for now. So on the right, we have the highest priority stream. People that have viewed resources pages, maybe the Contact Us page, people that are really close to converting. Our next priority stream is people that are kind of moderately engaged. Maybe they viewed a products page. And then on the far left, we have our lowest priority stream, people that have viewed a home page or some other page that we don't care about as much. So within each of those audiences, we have a set of waves to nurture them. And then, so someone will qualify for a nurture stream based on some sort of trigger, behavioral trigger. So let's say that Kate visits the homepage, and that will qualify her for the homepage nurture stream. After that, the movement is primarily time-based. So she might stay in wave 1 for the 5 tips white paper for about 10 days. However, there is a possibility to move between streams based on additional behavioral triggers. So let's say that on day 3, Kate sees the 5 tips ad and comes to the site, and then she browses around a little bit more and views the products page. So that product page view will cause her to qualify for the priority 2 stream. And since our behavioral criteria are evaluated in real time, she'll be added immediately, and provided that we have an exclusion on the priority 3 stream to remove people that kind of do deeper behaviors, she'll also be automatically removed from the priority 3 stream. So now that she's in the priority 2 stream, she'll see the ebook ad for 10 days. And then after the end of 10 days, provided she doesn't do anything further, she might start seeing ads to the case study. And then we might see this process again of moving from one stream to another. Let's say that she comes back and browses the resource section, then she might qualify for another stream. So that's just an example of kind of how contacts can move through the program. So the initial membership is typically triggered by some sort of behavior. The default movement after that is time-based, based on the length of time associated with the wave. However, there's also the opportunity for people to move between streams as they perform different behaviors that we care about. So this is an example with engagement level. This might look a little bit different if what you care about is persona. So let's say we've got 3 different audiences based on persona. So let's say we really care about HR decision makers, maybe people in HR, director above. And then we also kind of care about end HR users. And then we also kind of want to have a last catch-all group. Maybe these aren't people that are good prospects, but we still want some general marketing messaging for them. We might set up our nurturing strategy like that with sort of some corresponding offers. This is going to be a little bit different from the engagement-based strategy, because while ideally with the engagement-based strategy, people will change their engagement level over time, that's not usually the case with persona, right? So if Jim comes to the site 3 weeks ago and he's a recruiter, he's probably still going to be a recruiter when he comes back to the site today. So in these cases, just to give an example, let's say we have Amy. She's a developer looking for a job and she visits the site. She's not really in our target persona, so we're going to put her in the priority 3 stream, and she'll stay there. She'll see the 5 tips white paper ad for a few days, and if she doesn't do anything with it, we're done with her. Let's say that Jim comes to the site, he's a recruiter. He's kind of in our target, right? So we want to pay a bit more attention to him, serve him a few more ads, and he'll move through these ads based on time, provided he doesn't do anything different. One thing we might do though is, let's say that Jim is in the ebook wave and it's day 5, and he actually converts and downloads that ebook. What do you want to do with him then? We have 2 options. We could say maybe we're done with him at that point. If we know that the second we get that conversion, the sales team is going to give him a call, we might stop nurturing him altogether. However, we might know that since he's not the hottest prospect in the world in terms of his persona, we might want to nurture him a little bit more to see if he's really engaged before passing him on to sales. In that case, we might fast track him from the ebook ad to the next wave, the white paper wave. And the reason we might do that is because if he's already converted on the ebook ad, we don't want to keep showing him an ad for something he's already done. And then lastly, we could have a 3rd type of person, a VP of HR, who visits the site and kind of goes through a similar process to Jim, just with slightly different messages that are tailored more based on her role. Okay, so just to summarize kind of how contacts move through the nurture streams, there's almost always a behavioral trigger to qualify. The one case where there's not is if you're targeting a marketing automation list that you send over. So then in that case, the trigger is you sending the list and then launching the program, but there's not necessarily a behavioral trigger that someone immediately qualified. But for all sort of website visitor targeting, there's a behavioral trigger. Default movement through the waves is time-based. However, you can also pay attention to behavioral triggers to move contacts faster through waves if they convert on certain offers, or to move them between streams as they qualify for higher and higher priority streams. All right. So now that we've kind of gone through how contacts move before the streams and how audiences are segmented, want to go into creating and editing a nurture stream in a little bit more detail. So to create a new nurture stream, there are two ways that you can get to the editor. One is you can click on the Lead Accelerator dropdown and select the New Nurture Stream option. The other way you can get there is from the Nurture Streams Performance Report. So this is the main dashboard that you're probably familiar with. And up in the top right there, there's a button that says New Nurture Streams, and you can just click that to open a new Nurture Stream editor. If you want to edit an existing nurture stream, there's only one place where you can get to that, and that's from the Nurture Streams Performance Report. So what you'll do is you'll find the nurture stream that you want to edit. So let's say we want to edit this homepage and other stream. And then you're going to click on this little down arrow next to the plus sign, and that will open a little menu. And the first option on that menu is to edit the nurture stream. So that's what you want to click if you want to go in and edit. And you also have a couple of other options there. If the stream is already running, you'll have the option to pause it. So a really quick and easy way to turn something off if you need to. And then you also have a couple of other options. One is to duplicate. So let's say that you have a bunch of waves set up that are targeting audience A, and you think that a lot of those same ads would be relevant for a new audience that you want to add. So you might duplicate that nurture stream to save yourself some of the time in re-uploading those ads. And then lastly, this re-audit rejected option. You may or may not see this. If you've ever had ads part of that nurture stream that were rejected by our creative audit, you'll see this option. Just an easy way for you to go in once you've made your changes to resubmit your ads for audit. Okay, so now into the editor. The first thing you'll see in the nurture stream editor is the nurture stream title. And this sounds really basic, but just want to emphasize a couple things here. So highly recommend maintaining a consistent naming convention. Depending on how complex your nurture stream strategy is, your nurture streams might fall into a couple of different categories. So let's say that you're nurturing anonymous contacts in terms of website visitors, and you're also nurturing some known contacts within your marketing automation database. You might want to include some indicator in the names of your nurture streams so you can easily tell which nurture streams are part of the known group, which nurture streams are part of the anonymous. You might also include naming around what pages you're paying attention to, what demographics you're using, and you just want to be consistent. What's the order of those different categories as you typically list them? And then also, what is the kind of character that you're using to delimit between the different types of categories? And the reason that you want to think about this is because we have an export where you can look at all of the data. And if you ever want to kind of break things up and sort things by these larger categories, it makes it much easier if you can just consistently say split by underscore, split by dash, etc. So just want to encourage you to be consistent there. Although, not too much pressure, you can always go back and update your names later. All right, now we're going to get into the meat of it, defining an audience. So this is our audience definition editor. And the first thing I want to point out is that there are kind of two parts here, and this is organized really intentionally. So first we have the targeting, and you can kind of think of this as your starting set. And it's required to include a target in order to save the nurture stream. You have to have some group of people that you're saying, yes, I want these people in my program. And the two different types of targets we have are website visitors, so people that do something specific on the website that we care about that are triggered into the program. Then the other target is an external segment, which is usually a list from Eloqua or Marketo. So once you have a target, then you have filters that you can layer on and apply to that starting set. So the way that I think about the difference between these two is that the starting set is the original kind of population that you define, and then filters are ways that you sort that existing population. So let's say that your population is a jar of 500 M&Ms. The filter you might apply is to say, I want only the blue M&Ms. So you've got your population, you're applying your filter, and then you're kind of resulting in the specific audience that you care about. But it doesn't make sense to just say, I want only blue if you don't have a population to evaluate. So that's why you need that target in there. And as far as what those filters are, we have business demographic criteria, so company size, industry, functional area, seniority. And they can also filter based on location. That's just an overview. We'll get into each of these in a little bit more detail. So if you want to include a target, and we'll start with website visitors since it's the most common, you'll go into the little website visitors area, and then you'll select whether you want to include or to exclude a target. So remember, it's required to have at least one target included. So let's say that we want to include people that visit a pricing page. Or actually, I think this example is product. So include someone that visits a product page. But you might also choose to exclude certain people. So let's say if someone goes to a careers page, you definitely don't want to target them. You would add that exclusion in the same place. You would just select exclude rather than include. The next step is to pick the type of website visitor behavior that you want to look at. So we've got three options: completed action, visited page set, and visited domain. Most of the time you're going to use visited page set. Those are people that go to certain pages, they haven't necessarily converted. And I even prefer using that over visited domain because you can be a little bit more specific and really clear on what you're including and what you're not including. Once you select the type of behavior you want to look at, then you can select the specific group. So if we've selected visit page set, then we can actually pick the page set. So in this case, we're going to select all product pages. And lastly, and importantly, you don't want to forget this, you actually have to click the add button to select the target. So once you click the add button, you'll know that it's worked because you'll see this little dark gray box with the name of the page set or target that you selected. All right, so for targeting a marketing automation list, works really, really similarly. You're going to look at the external segments portion of the editor, select include, select whether it's Elocore, Marketo, or some other third party, and then select the name of the list and click add. And it'll appear same way, everything. One thing I want to call out here is that targeting a marketing automation list is in a lot of ways much simpler than targeting website visitors because typically all you're going to do is include the list and that's it. You're not layering on additional filtering, you're not doing a lot of exclusions. And the reason for that is that you've already had the opportunity to do all of your filtering for that list within your marketing automation system. So you may have already selected just those leads in the US, just those leads with a specific score, specific title, et cetera. So it's redundant to add that additional filtering on within this editor, and it's usually counterproductive. So it will reduce scale without actually providing any benefit. So most of the time, you're just going to include the list, and that's it for marketing automation. So once you've defined your target, then you're going to apply a filter. So the editor here works very similarly. Just going to go through this as an example. So let's say that we want people to go to product pages, back to our example, but we don't want to include them if they're from a company that's so small that we know we can't sell to them. So we're going to do a company size exclusion. So first we're going to select exclude. Then from the demographic dropdown, it defaults to company size with a couple of options. We're going to select company size. And then we're going to select a specific company size that we want to exclude. So I know there are a bunch of options here, and let's say we know there are a few company sizes we want to exclude. We do have to select them one at a time. So I might start with myself only, and then I click the add button, and then I might go back again and select 2 to 10 if I know that that's also too small. And then again, always click the add button to apply that filter. So filters work the same way for geography, for other business demographics, and you can technically include a whole bunch of different filters. The thing you want to be aware of is that adding a bunch of different filters is going to reduce your scale. And I want to show you some specifics around the logic for combining those different filters so you can understand how much that scale may or may not be affected. So in this case, let's say we're starting with the target of all products pages. So that's our population. We can't have anything broader than that. And then we're going to apply a geography target. So that should be including the United States. So the population is all product pages, but they also have to be within the United States. So that's one filter. Now we're going to add another one. So let's say they have to be in IT. And so what we're going to do here is we're only paying attention to the people that meet all of the criteria. That's what happens when we combine different filters across different categories. So functional area is a category, geography is a category, page set is a category. Since those are all different categories and we're combining them, we're only looking for those people that meet all of the criteria. And then we have one more here. We have company size 10,000 plus. So this just makes our target audience so much smaller because we're looking at only the intersection of all of these criteria. And that leaves us with just this little polygon here. So it's a much, much smaller group than the original product pages section. So that's when you're combining filters across different categories. But what if you've got different populations across the same category? So let's say I'm including a few different page sets. Since those are all the same category, it actually works in kind of the opposite way. Someone only needs to meet one criteria in order to qualify. So let's say we've got resources, we've got a contact us page, we've got a news and events page. And we think that all of those things are kind of low funnel signals, and we're going to group them together. Someone only needs to go to one of those pages to qualify for this nurture stream. And the same thing goes for exclusions. If you've got a bunch of exclusions, someone only needs to meet one criteria in order to be excluded. So let's say we're excluding careers and Marketo pages, and then we're excluding small company sizes and people with low seniority, and we're excluding a certain continent. So, it would just make sense logically that if we want to exclude these things, let's say someone goes to a Marketo page, doesn't matter what continent they're from, what seniority level, we know that they're not a fit. So we'll exclude all of this population, and it'll just be kind of what's left over that we actually target. All right, so one more thing I want to talk to you about audience targeting, and that's including versus excluding certain demographics. So as you might have noticed from the Audience Insight report, we don't have 100% coverage for all of the business demographic targets. So, we might have company size data for 45% of the visitors on your website. That means for 55% of those people, we don't have company size data. So that means that it's very different to exclude the demographics that you don't want compared to including only those demographics that you do want. And that difference is what you do with those group of people that are uncategorized. So I want to take a second and look at both of these approaches and show you how the size of the audience changes. So let's say that I know I can't sell to companies with a size below 50. So one way I might do that is to exclude only those people that I know are at a company size too small. So I'll exclude myself only, 2 to 10, 11 to 50, exclude this group here in the visualization, and we're left with everything else. So that's well over half because we've got those larger company sizes, and we're also leaving in the uncategorized people, since there might be some folks in there that are the right size company and we just don't know it. On the flip side, I might take the opposite approach and include only those people at company sizes that I know are large enough. And so that's going to include only this group with known company sizes. And we're going to be leaving out everything else. So that leaves us with a much smaller target audience compared to the first way of doing it. And so this isn't to say that you only want to exclude and you never want to include. It's just something that you want to think about. If you know that your site isn't that big compared to the number of people that you want to reach, then you'll probably want to err on the side of excluding the companies, excluding the demographics you know you don't want. If, however, you've got millions and millions of site visitors and you really kind of need to narrow in and get just those people that are most important, it might make sense for you to do an inclusion. All right. And then just to go back to exclusion of page sets and also demographics, when we were looking at the example before of someone that starts out in the homepage nurture stream and then they go to a product page and they're removed from the homepage and they start in the product page section, currently the reason that works is because we set up a sort of prioritization using exclusions. So in this example, we have a fairly generic stream, an engaged other stream. And the way that we kind of make sure that people are removed from the stream if they qualify for other streams is by excluding the page sets that would qualify for them for those deeper streams. So here we're excluding people that go to a contact us page, excluding people that go to lead accelerator pages because we know we've got another nurture stream that will pick them up. So currently that's how we do prioritization, and that's how we help make sure that our audiences are mutually exclusive and that we're not nurturing one contact through multiple different nurture streams. But I do have good news, and that is that the way that we do prioritization is going to be improving pretty soon. So this is a new feature we're working on where you'll specify the priority of your streams, And that way you won't have to think about all of those complicated exclusions to do that logically. The system will figure it out for you if you just say, hey, my resources stream is a higher priority than my product stream. So that'll be coming soon, and when it's available, you'll just see a little notification when you log into Lead Accelerator. Okay, so enough about audience definition. Now I want to get into creating waves. So the first step in creating a wave is specifying a name. So typically you're going to name this after the offer or call to action that you're promoting. So it might be a name of a white paper, name of a webinar, etc. Then you'll specify a landing page, and you'll also specify a conversion. So a landing page is going to be the page that your ad clicks through to, and that page might have a form maybe to download a white paper. And the action is going to be the secondary action that you want to track. So the secondary behavior, not just a landing page visit, but what you want them to do afterwards. So let's say that someone fills out a form, and when they submit that form, they go to a thank you page. You might track that thank you page as the action, because that will let you know if that person was converted. One quick thing I want to point out here is that we now have the ability to add some additional tracking based on different channels. So if you want to have a different UTM parameter for ads from Facebook versus from sponsored updates versus from your banner ads, we now support that. So you're just going to click this little menu icon, and that'll open up different landing page URLs for the different channels, which you can then update with different parameters to track the different channels that you care about. If you decide that you don't want that, you can always kind of collapse back down to one URL by clicking this little minus sign. All right, so once you specify a name, landing page, conversion, all of that, then it's time to actually add the creative. So you're just going to click the Add Creative button, and that'll open up a couple of other options. So you can select a creative type, and then it's going to default to banner. So if you just want to upload banner ads, you're just going to click the Upload File button and upload your ads. If you upload something and you decide that that's not what you want, you can just click Discard Creative. So once you upload, the ads that you upload will preview down below, and you'll have the option to add more creative. So let's go through a different example with a social ad. So you might select Facebook Newsfeed. And for Facebook, this is kind of a unique step. You're going to select the page that you want the ad to appear to come from. And then it's going to open up the rest of the editor. And this editor looks very similar to sponsored updates. So I'm only going to show you one. You're just going to upload the image, copy your text into the editor. And then when you're ready, you're going to click the Save Creative button. One thing I want to caution you is that once you click Save Creative, you can't go back and edit this. If you need to make changes, all you can do is remove the ad and start with a new one. So I encourage you to use the preview. So you just click actual size up here, and then you can preview it, read through it, double check it, make sure everything looks good before you save. And then once you save everything, again, you'll see everything down in the preview area. And if you want to see something larger again, or let's say you want to turn something off, or you want to remove something that isn't right, you can just click on that ad to preview at full size, and then you'll see these options, the on, off, remove, etc. All right, so once you upload all the creative, then you specify how long someone should be eligible to see those creative after qualifying for the wave. And I get a lot of questions about how long waves should be, so I want to give you a few kind of pointers and rules of thumb. So what I usually start with is, what's the total stream length? Because the total stream length is just going to be the sum of all of the different waves added together. But I like to kind of work backwards. So what's the total stream length? It's the total time you want to nurture these contacts. And as a rule of thumb, I like to start with 30 days. You can always adjust it from there. If you see that people continue to be engaged, you can go longer. If you see that people aren't engaged for the whole 30 days, you can make it shorter. But I like to start with 30 days. And then I just like to divide by the number of waves I have to figure out what the wavelength for each wave should be. So if I have 4 waves, I might do 7 days apiece. If I have 3 waves, I might do 10 days apiece. And that's always a good way to start. There might be a couple of cases where you do something slightly different. So if you have an offer that you want to start right away, but you know that if you don't get them within the first 2 days, you're not going to, you might start out with a shorter wave. There can always be exceptions, but this is a general rule of thumb. And some other things to think about are that longer streams are going to result in higher usage because you're kind of keeping contacts in the program longer, and so they kind of add up. and that the more waves you have is going to have an impact on your delivery. So since we bid more each time we change waves, the more waves you have, the kind of more intensity of delivery those contacts are going to see. So a couple of things you want to just think about there. And then the last thing you want to think about is what's going to happen to people that convert on these waves. Do you want them to stay in the nurture stream? So for example, if you know they're not going to get past the sales immediately and you want them to continue to increase their lead score, you might have them stay in the nurture stream. But you might want to fast track them to the next wave. And the way that you do that is by clicking the checkbox next to Move Contacts To, and then selecting the wave that you want to move them to after they convert. Okay. And so that's creating a wave. You can always add more waves. So just click the Add Wave button, and there's no technical limit to how many you can have currently. And then once you're confident that everything's ready, you can click the Save button, or you can even click the Launch button. And I want to talk about the difference between these two. So the Save button is just going to save everything that you have so far, and you can always come back in and edit. And usually that's what you'll want to do to start out with. And there are a couple of things that happen when you save. So the creatives that you've uploaded get sent out for audit, and the audiences begin building. So that means that you'll have more contacts in your pool when you're actually ready to launch. When you launch, a couple of other things that happen. So once you launch, you might be able to actually start serving impressions, and it also means that you can't delete waves or creative because we could potentially have data associated with it. However, you always have the ability to go back in to add more waves, add more ads, and update names, actions, etc. The only thing you can't do is delete at that point. Okay, so now that we've gone through setup, I want to talk about usage and performance a little bit and walk through the reports that you can use to understand what's going on with your program. Okay, so I wanted to start out with something I was just talking about a little bit, which is that audiences begin building once a stream is saved. And this is fairly new, and this is just an example of what that might look like. So you'll see that when this program launched on the 14th, there was a big spike from 0 to 1,200 or 12,000 in terms of the number of contacts in the program. After that, we're just sort of seeing a daily gradual increment as we kind of add more and more people day over day. And the reason that we see that big initial spike is that we actually started gathering contacts into the nurture stream when it was first saved. And we can kind of extrapolate the trend line down here to see when that probably was. So it looks like we probably initially saved the nurture streams around the 2nd. So this is kind of just an argument for, once you have your audience figured out, you can go ahead, create the show nurture stream and save it, even if you don't have your creative ready, so that when you do have your creative ready and you're ready to launch, you have a good bunch of people in that program already. So that's just a kind of quick aside. I want to talk about the usage report a little bit more the way that you're used to thinking about it, which is in terms of how many contacts are you nurturing relative to your limit. So you might be above your limit, you might be below your limit, and there are kind of unique problems that can be associated with either one of those things. So generally, we want to aim to be as close to the contact limit as possible. That's where we're going to see kind of the most efficient performance. We're going to be able to serve a whole bunch of impressions, but we're also going to have enough budget to serve impressions effectively and not be spread too thin. So if you see either one of these things, you're way above your contact limit, you're way below your contact limit, it's a good opportunity to talk to your MAC if you're still working with a MAC or your account manager. But there are some common strategies that we might use to adapt to either one of those scenarios. So if you're above, you might look at shortening nurture streams to decrease your usage, maybe narrowing your audience a little bit, or maybe decreasing the duration of your nurture streams so that you don't keep contacts in there as longer. And then the one other thing, if there's something that's really, really not working, you can always look at pausing. If you're below the contact limit, you can broaden your audiences, lengthen your nurture streams, basically just do the opposite of what you would do if you're above the contact limit. So this is probably familiar to you in terms of general guidance. So what I want to talk about now is how we look at this at the stream level to identify the specific places where we're going to make some of these adjustments. Okay. So below the main usage report graph, we can see the different streams that are part of the nurture program. And this is where we can figure out what's really contributing to that overall usage. So in this example, we might see this little notification and it says that we're above the contact limit. So this will tell us that we probably want to decrease our usage to help the program run more effectively. One thing I want to point out here is that we have the total listed right in the report, and this is going to mirror whatever is in the graph. And just want to point out, if you notice that these numbers don't sum exactly to the lines below them, that's okay. That's actually expected. The total number of contacts is deduplicated. However, each individual line in the program is not. So you might have, some programs that overlap slightly with each other, and so those numbers might not be exactly the same, and that's okay, nothing to freak out about. All right, so if we want to look at this report to find out what might be a candidate for making some changes, we'll want to try to find a large, inefficient stream. And so we can see in this case that the homepage bouncer stream is by far the largest stream, and given that it's really general, we might guess that it's not as efficient. We'll obviously want to back that up with a performance report, but that might be our hypothesis. And then the other thing we'll look at is how long is that stream? If you remember, the duration does play a role in the usage. So if you nurture a stream for longer, you'll kind of gather more days worth of contacts. So we might look and see if this is a longer stream, maybe there's an opportunity to shorten it. So if we cut this stream, cut the duration by half, we would also kind of decrease the audience by half. So we'll see, in this case, yeah, that's a pretty long stream. It's actually the longest one we have, which is kind of counterintuitive. If this is a really general audience, we probably don't want to kind of pay as much attention to nurture them as long. All right, so once we look at the usage report, we also want to go and look at the regular performance report to make sure that the optimizations that report suggests are consistent with what the performance report suggests. So this is a different example, but kind of some similar trends here. So what we're going to look for, if we think that we're over our usage here, is what are some large underperforming nurture streams. So let's start with the underperforming part first. What we're going to do is look for streams that are really inefficient, and the best metric for that is impressions per action. It's kind of a holistic efficiency metric from impression and through to click through to action. And since we're dividing impressions by action, we actually know that a higher impressions per action is worse, and a lower impressions per action is better or more efficient. So let's take a look here. What has our highest impressions per action? That's going to be this North America Sponsored Updates nurture stream with the 7,000 some. So that could be a candidate, maybe something we want to shorten, maybe something we want to turn off, potentially pause. However, probably not the best candidate in this case, and here's why. It's not serving very many impressions, which means it's probably not very big, which means if we shorten it or pause it, it's not going to have a huge impact on usage. So we might look at the next worst performing, which looks like it's this North American engaged other with about 4,000 impressions per action. So not performing that much worse than some of the other parts of the program, but this one is a big nurture stream. So this is probably a really good candidate to look at and see what is working as part of this program, what's not working, and what are some places where we can maybe get a little bit more efficient. So let's take a closer look at this nurture stream. So again, we're going to look at impressions per action, and we're going to take a look and see what are the waves within this nurture stream that are less efficient. Okay, so this is actually looking at what's most efficient. Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, really low impressions per action, that's good. We definitely don't want to touch that. We also have this lead accelerator nurture stream, or wave, pardon me. And that has a really high impressions per action, but we might not want to turn that one off either. And here's why. So this lead accelerator wave goes directly to a contact us form, which might cause someone to immediately be an MQL. So we might be able to tolerate a higher impressions per action if ultimately that's going to have a higher likelihood of conversion. So maybe we don't want to touch that one either. So what will we look at instead? We'll look at these other two, the Executive Playbook and the Crash Course for Full Funnel Marketing. Both of these look like they're significantly lower performance than Sophisticated Marketer's Guide. So if we know that we need to kind of trim some usage and kind of deliver less impressions to this nurture stream, either of those are going to be good candidates to think about turning off. So you can look at the impressions per action in this report. Sometimes the dashboard might not be, you might have just a lot of data in there. It might be hard for you to figure out what are the biggest contributors to performance. So just want to point out that there's another tool you can use we do allow you to export the data from your entire program to do a bit of deeper analysis. So that's just going to be at the top of the nurture streams report, and you just click this export button and select whether you want a summary of an entire date range or whether you want to export by day so you can see changes over time. And that's just going to give you this great little CSV file which shows all of the attributes broken out. So the date, if you did the by day, the name of the nurture stream, the number of the wave, the name of the wave, channel, creative size, all of it. So really powerful, a lot of things you can sort by. And this is, again, where why you want to think about naming conventions. Because most of the attributes are broken out, but if there are certain kind of ways that you think about categorizing things that are only in the names, whether it's the stream name or the wave name, you want to make sure that you're making it easy on yourself when you try to categorize those names later. Okay. So if we decided, back from our example before, that we wanted to pause a wave, or maybe we wanted to reorder something, so move something that was higher performing, up to the top of a program, let's talk about how we're going to do that. So all of these things can be done from the editor, and it's going to be either at the top of the wave or at the bottom of the wave. So we can just click that off button to turn a wave off entirely. We can click the arrows, the up and down arrows, to change the order of waves. And then if we want to change the length of the wave, that's going to be at the bottom of the wave, and we'll just update that number of days. So maybe we want to change that from 7 to 5, just click update that. And always make sure to save your changes so that they're actually preserved. One of these types of changes can actually be made directly from the dashboard. So if you want to pause anything, that's something you can do right there by clicking the off button. Okay, so now that we've talked about why you might want to make changes to your waves or to your nurture streams and how you would do it, I want to talk a little bit more about what happens when these changes are made. So as a general rule, contacts that are already in the affected wave, nothing happens to them. They continue to move as if the change didn't happen. However, the changes will apply to new contacts that enter the nurture stream or that wave. So let's just take a really basic example of a wave that's been paused. So a new contact that enters after that pause happens, let's say they're in wave 3 when the pause happens. They stay in wave 3, finish wave 3, and then they just skip wave 4 and go to wave 5. Let's say someone else is in wave 4, this crash course to full funnel marketing, when it's paused. They actually stay in that wave for the remainder of the time that they would have stayed in there anyway. So they stop seeing ads because those ads have been turned off, but they will continue to move through. So, they might, let's say they're on day 3 of 5, they'd stay in there for another 2 days, not see ads, and then move to wave 5. Works similarly if the order is changed. So let's say that 3 types of thought leadership is doing a lot better than sophisticated guides to SUs. We might move that to the top. So someone that's in wave 3 when that change happens, they actually won't get the 3 types of thought leadership. They'll stay in sophisticated guide, and then they'll move to crash course, and then they'll move to whatever is, might be below that or not. If someone is in 3 types of thought leadership when the change happens, they're going to stay there for the rest of the time that they would have stayed there anyway, and then they're going to move to the wave that is now next. So the sophisticated guide to SUs, they might actually see that again. So generally not a big deal, but the thing you want to take away from this is that you don't want to get, too into changing things, all the time, because it will affect the experience for the contacts that are in those programs, and it'll make it harder for you to evaluate what's actually working. Okay. Actually, let's talk about one more thing here. So let's say that the way that you want to reduce usage is not pausing, it's not reordering, it's actually changing your filtering. So again, let's say that you decide you want to add another company size exclusion. Again, the people that are already in the program won't be affected by that change. It'll only be the new people that join that will be evaluated based on that company size information. And what this means is that the program doesn't respond kind of all at once. You'll kind of see the impact of those changes gradually as more and more of the people in that nurture stream have been affected by the change. So let's say that we changed a wave, a nurture stream length from 10 days to, well, let's say 14 days to 8 days. so decreased it by 6 or 7. We wouldn't see a sudden drop. We would see a kind of slow decline as more and more people were kind of gradually in the program for shorter periods of time. So the change was made at this point, and then we see the gradual decline over the 6 or 7 days. So all just to point out that when you make these changes to respond to usage or respond to performance, you're not going to see the full impact of the change right away. You want to be patient, give it a week or two to really let the program respond and see what happens. All right. And then back to this idea of changing your filtering. A lot of you are probably aware of this, but the Audience Insight Report is a great tool to help give you ideas as to how you might adjust your filtering. So some things to point out here, you're always going to want to be looking at unique visitors. It defaults to page views, but if you're trying to estimate audience sizes, always want to change it to unique visitors because that's kind of the best correlation between contacts. Also want to make sure that you're looking at a full month. By default, it'll tell you the present month, which is usually incomplete. So you want to just change it back to the previous month so you know you've got a month's worth of data. If you want to estimate the size of the different page sets, you can just select that from the list and see how many unique visitors qualify for that page set within the previous month. And then a couple of other things here. By default, the chart shows only 10 segments per group, so 10 industries, 10 company sizes, 10 functional areas. And that helps keep the report a little bit more readable, but sometimes there are more specific groups that you care about. And if you want to see those, you can just uncheck the limit to 10 segments per group. This can be really helpful when, let's say, we see this corporate sector group here. That's a sector, that's a wrap-up category. If we want to see what's included in corporate sector, we might select it. So check the box and click Submit. And then get rid of the limit to 10 segments per group. And that'll show us all little sub-industries that are within the corporate sector. So just want to point that out. And then lastly, any of these things you have to click Submit for them to actually apply. And there is an export function here too. Not something I see people use a lot, but if you're curious and you want to do some work in Excel or better understand your data, that is an option. Okay. All right, so just some final thoughts here. Going back to how the nurture streams now save and start building context as soon as they're saved, you want to think about that and save your audiences early to allow them to build before you start serving impressions. Also, double, triple check your audience definitions. Once you launch a new stream, kind of gut check the usage and make sure it kind of aligns with your expectations. If it doesn't, definitely go back and check. Make sure your audience targets look right, and potentially even go back a step further and make sure that your page sets look right and do what you want them to do, because that's a really common place for people to make mistakes. Also, test and optimize. Gradually refine your audiences over time, change the number of waves, length of nurture stream based on what works. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip of water here. Okay, and when you make those tests and optimizations, give the streams time to respond to changes. You're not going to see the whole impact overnight. Make sure you give it a couple of weeks and then come back and see what changes have occurred and evaluate success. All right, and lastly, a bunch of helpful links if you want to go into this in more detail. If you're not aware of our help summary yet, please check it out. It's awesome. We've been building out a lot. You can always get to it from the persistent help link that's going to be at the top right of your page. That's up here in the corner. And then there are also new tours. So if there's just a page that you haven't been to in a while and you want a quick refresher of what it's about and how to use it, you can walk through the tour. Some specific links that I think are being relevant are listed here, but you can search for all of these topics within the Help Center. So just try nurture stream, nurture wave, wave duration, that kind of good stuff. And oops, that is it. So we'll go into some questions. Okay, so just taking a look at a few of the questions that have come in. One question was, since you can export to Excel, do you have an API that would allow us to integrate with Tableau? Currently, we do not, So, your process there would be just to export into Excel and kind of manually put that in Tableau. But if that changes at some point, you'll probably see an update in your system. But right now, that's the state of things. Let's see. Do you have a similar audience feature for building contact lists? I'm assuming that's referring to marketing automation lists. And, if that's the case, I would say no. The audience, the contact list building is actually happening within the marketing automation system, so you're using whatever that system's tools are. So if it's Eloqua, you would be creating a segment, and there are kind of filter tools within the segment creation process. So all of that is sort of native to the marketing automation system. Same thing goes for Marketo. So kind of create on that side and then send it over. Okay. And then another question, can you define a nurture stream by persona and engagement? Yes, you absolutely can. In my examples, I was just trying to keep it simple, but you can definitely combine these two strategies. And I think that's the case where the new prioritization is going to be really helpful, since sometimes it's kind of tricky to get the prioritization right and all the exclusions right when you're combining behavioral criteria and persona criteria, but it's definitely something that we support. So just to give an example, we could look at that HR example and just kind of add an engagement level. So let's say that we want to split the whole site based on engagement level. So people that kind of go to higher level pages that we don't care about as much, and then people that really show lower funnel signals. And then we would just kind of duplicate the program. So we'd have, HR decision makers that go to top level pages is one nurture stream. HR decision makers that go to lower level pages, that's another nurture stream. Generic HR, upper level, generic HR, lower level. And so that's how you would do that. Okay. I think that's all the questions we've gotten for now. If anybody has any last ones, I encourage you to send those in really quickly. But if we don't receive any others, I think we're just going to wrap up.
All right, thank you everyone, and remember to keep an eye out on your email for follow-up with the slides and the presentation. Thanks.